across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you for the next 3 hours. And coming up, of course, at midnight, it is your chance to talk back. So, what are we talking about at midnight? There's this really interesting story. I know that Peter addressed it earlier on in his programme about lessons at schools in Sheffield about white privilege and about the fact that black people cannot be racist towards white people, and in fact that actually it is, they can be prejudiced against white people, but that's not the same as racism. So I would be really interested to hear from my black listeners, my brown listeners, my white listeners, as to whether you think this is true and whether you think actually that lessons like this cause more division than they solve. Because these lessons are going out to 7-year-old children from 7 years upwards. And I'm not sure that 7-year-olds really, I don't know. My genuine feeling is that when my son was 7, and he went to a very multicultural school, actually, which probably helped, to be fair, that there wasn't racism in the playground, that there wasn't, because it was there were so many black children, brown children, white children, all sorts of children, that nobody really saw colour. So I don't know what it's like outside of those sort of that sort of school, and maybe children do need to be taught about the differences of black experience and white experience. And I do believe there is a difference between what white people experience and what black people experience. I don't know about black experience because I am not black, but I do think that there is prejudice against black people in this country, and I do think there is racism, and I think it is more difficult for people to get on in certain industries, particularly this one, if they are of colour. I think it's very difficult I think there is such a thing in certain places as white privilege. So, I mean, maybe that makes me a weirdo, I don't know, but I'd love to hear from you. But I do think, though, that black people can display racist tendencies towards white people, but is it not racism because of white people's cultural, I don't know, positioning? That's what these schools are arguing. So I'm a bit confused about this. So I do need to hear from you to set my mind straight, particularly if you're black or brown. And I mean, like I said, everybody. I want to hear from everybody about this. And do you think it's helpful for 7-year-olds to have these lessons taught to them? So give me a call on this, 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message, please, to 87222. So that's coming up at midnight. So we'll chat about that at midnight. Before that, I can tell you that the wonderful John Boothman will be joining us from Scotland to go through the papers. Ben Jacobs will be joining us to chat about the World Cup preparation and ticket pricing and hotels and what's going on with visas and things like that. And a lot of people are saying this is not going to be as successful because of American politics as it was going to be. So we'll talk to Ben about that. He's going to be heading to North America in a few days' time. Then the wonderful Kevin Schofield joins us to talk through the current politics of the day. Certainly quite a lot going on there. Now, though, NATO, Trojan Footprint 2026. This is NATO's largest special forces military exercise in Europe, and it is currently underway. Now, it's around 3,000 elite troops from about 22 different nations. The US, the UK are joining as well, taking part in a 10-day event over 10 countries. The drills are designed to test responses to attempts by a potential aggressor, see if you can recognise this aggressor, to infiltrate and attack NATO territory, as well as test responses to hybrid threats like cyber attacks, infiltration and sabotage. From the Mediterranean to the Baltic and Black Seas, forces are practicing highly coordinated, simulated missions to protect regional borders. Now, America is there, despite the fact that we're not as sure as we were, that America will be there for us under the NATO umbrella if it was so needed. So, why is America there if they're not sure they would come to our aid? And can we do this without them if we need to? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Paul Beaver, who is defence analyst and author. It's wonderful to see you again, Paul. I hope you're well.
Yeah, I'm a lot better, Petrie, thank you. The pneumonia I was suffering seems to have gone. So
thank goodness.
My aim is to make sure it doesn't come back.
Yeah, I've had the vaccine against that already. So that's what I recommend everybody. Paul, how important are these exercises and why are they important?
Well, it's important to exercise as often as the system allows, because what you're doing with an exercise, I know that the shorthand these days is to call them drills. They're not drills. A drill is when American soldiers throw their rifles up and down for no apparent reason and catch them. That's a drill. This is an exercise. So you set an objective and then you work your way to that objective and you see, is it going to work? And, it's really good to see that this exercise includes parachute airborne soldiers, it includes helicopters, it includes fast boats, it includes air of all sorts. And of course, there'll also be that unseen capability, cyber, radio communications, space, etc. And it's important for European allies to work together, first of all, because of the number of languages. English is the working language, but you have to be able to communicate in English well. So you've got all of these things going on. So really important.
So it's important to do it, but would it not have been more important on this occasion to do it without America, if that looks like it might be our future?
Our future could well be without the United States. And we'd have to discuss what happens about Article 5 of the NATO treaty. Will the United States come to Europe's aid? But we're not quite there yet. What we have to do is build up European resilience and capabilities. That's going on. The United Kingdom, sadly, is the one country where it's not going on, although I'm told that by Wednesday we should know a little bit more about this fabled 18 billion that's been promised by the Prime Minister. But what we were going to have to do is learn how to work without America. And that means all the technical stuff. It means all the space, the strategic reconnaissance assets and the like, and the sheer mass of the American armed forces.
So how do we do that by carrying out this exercise where it looks like it was about 1,000 Americans and 2,000 others? That's a third of this NATO exercise being filled by America, not to mention, as you said, their intelligence, the support that is absolutely necessary in these wars that America provides with satellite technology and other technologies, and weapons support as well. So how is this kind of realistic given where we are in the world right now?
Oh, I think it's realistic in the sense that we have to continually work together and try different things. This is the first time a lot of these scenarios have been practiced. And I think that's important, to bring in countries like Greece, like the Baltics, as well as the mainstream European countries of France, Germany, Britain, Italy, into this. All this is important. To me, the irony here is that President Trump has said Europe must spend more money and defend itself. So Europe's doing that. What President Trump really meant was Europe should spend a lot more money in American arms bazaars buying American kit to defend itself. And the Europeans have gone, actually, no. We have our own arms industry, defense equipment industry, if you like. It's perfectly capable, and we can do almost everything. The only thing we need to do is invest at the same level across Europe as the United States, and we need to coordinate it so we all buy the same kit.
Or buy kit that dovetails, right? So
Yes.
but it has to be,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, has to be coordinated.
We don't need to all buy the Swedish Gripen.
No.
Countries like the Czech Republic and Hungary already operate it, but we need to be able to plug in the NATO system to it, which we can do now. Sweden is now a member of NATO, so you can have F-16s and F-35s and Typhoons, but they all have to work together. And your ground crews need to know how to load missiles and how to refuel. Now, from the Special Forces perspective, what's important now is working out some tactics, techniques, and procedures that can be used in wartime, because each nation will have sorted out its own, for its own terrain, for its national requirements, its own special operations forces, SOF forces, they call them. They would have been working this through. Now, what we need to make sure is we coordinate, and not all NATO special forces are tier one. There are 6 tiers of capability within the special forces. Most of them are 2, 3, and 4. It's only people like the SAS, the SBS, and the SRR in Britain, for example, which are tier one. But then you need the supporting elements of this special forces support group in Britain, which is based around 1st Battalion Parachute Regiment. You need that capability as well. And how is it going to dovetail in? Now, this is a really important exercise, and it's really good that NATO is giving good publicity to it as well.
And what's really interesting as well is you mentioned there about Donald Trump wanting us to buy our arms, obviously from America, but in the last 4 years, and in breakneck speed in terms of defence, it's moved on, hasn't it? I mean, it's not the Tomahawks and the aircraft now. It is not those big ticket items that are winning wars at the moment. If you just look at what Ukraine has been able to do with the, necessity being the mother of invention, they've created a whole new world of cheaper, smaller. I saw an article the other day about their robotics that they're using now on the battlefield to drop off landmines and things like that. It's extraordinary. These items are really cheap now, and America is not making them. So the world has moved on.
Ukraine is very fast becoming Europe's largest defense exporter. I mean, it's exporting equipment to Qatar, to the United Emirates, to the Saudis, traditional places that the United States would go. And it's really interesting that Ukrainian troops are no longer training with NATO and NATO teaching them. It's reversed.
Yeah. Well, America had to go to them for one of their cards, and that is the drone technology. So it has completely moved on warfare. And what was interesting is that this exercise, that they are including some of that new stuff as well, aren't they? The drone technology and things like that, because that's where we need to be learning now, isn't it, for the future?
I'm delighted to say, without much fanfare, the Brits have been working with drones, with small drones, and have been developing them in our own cottage industries, if you like, our own SMEs, small and medium enterprises. And we've been working away at that. And the great thing about having a small company build something is that they don't have the overheads of the Lockheed Martins and the BAE Systems. So therefore, the unit cost can be lower. We still need the Typhoons and the submarines and whatever that the big manufacturers can create. But we need to emphasize more the small people. And we need to actually get our civil servants to understand that a small company might seem on the surface more risky, but actually they're more innovative because they are risky. So we've got to educate everybody, the Treasury in particular, but also the Ministry of Defence, about using small equipment manufacturers, because actually they can make a difference. Ukraine has shown us that. Guys in a basement garage have been building equipment. I just love some of the technology. People are building cardboard drones, can't be detected by radar. They cost almost nothing. And if you lose a few, you lose a few.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's where this is going. But at the end of the day, you need that central core of resilient. You need your armor and your artillery, your special forces, your air and your sea. So you can't win it all by drones and special forces.
No, but if you look at the asymmetric nature of Iran's war, that they've got people in their kitchens built, and it's not like there's a big defence factory churning out drones. They literally, people are building drones in their kitchen, you know, all around the country. And that again is a new form of protecting your defence systems, is to not put them in the most obvious places and to have people just doing it at home. I mean, it's extraordinary when you look at it.
1940 and dispersed production is exactly what we did to the Spitfire.
Yeah.
There were 20 odd factories in Salisbury and Trowbridge and Basingstoke and whatever, places you would never expect, that were churning out parts or even final assemblies. I mean, in Caversham, they were building all the photo reconnaissance Spitfires. Now, if you think about that in a modern sense, do you know, there's a lot to be said for this. There are a lot of places, there's a lot of industrial units which are not occupied. Why not start up in there and produce it? We need to get rid of red tape. There's always a lot of red tape in these things. But we're not quite on a war footing yet. We perhaps ought to be. Our friends in Finland and the Baltic states and Poland are virtually on a war footing.
I wanted to talk to you about Poland because, of course, the Americans were due to send 4,000 soldiers to Poland on a rotating basis, so to keep 4,000 there, drawing down about 5,000, Trump says, from Germany. Is he I mean, this seems to me to be playing right into Putin's hands. To punish us, he's going to give Putin a clearer run at Poland.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of hyperbole out there on social media about this. Does President Trump get his orders from another country? These things are difficult, but President Trump is unpredictable. In a way, that's quite good to have the leader of the West being unpredictable, because the enemy doesn't quite know what he's doing. But he's punishing Poland and not delivering Tomahawks and not delivering Patriot missiles and this sort of thing, mainly because he miscalculated with Iran, big time. But also because Poland has said to Korea, for example, actually, we'll buy your tanks and your artillery pieces. You can deliver quicker, and actually your equipment is better and cheaper, and it doesn't come with that add-on. The problem with buying American equipment is if you buy an artillery piece from America, you have to every now and then upgrade it, because the Americans have upgraded theirs for domestic American reasons. And then if you didn't do that and you come to the next generation of upgrades, it won't fit. I mean, the French found this with the Hawk surface-to-air missile, which is why they developed the Aster system that Britain uses as well. We call it Sea Viper in our frigates and destroyers. There's always a cause and effect here. You might think in industry that you're making money, and you might be for that quarter. Americans notoriously like making, they like to have their 4 quarterly reports. Actually, the world doesn't work quite like that when it comes to the military. Ukraine doesn't worry about that.
No,
on
of course not. Just while I've got you, I do want to ask you about Iran and the situation there. Donald Trump is running out of time and he's running out of road. He's got the midterms coming up. He needs this done and dusted. He needs to try and at least see gas prices, petrol prices coming down at the pumps for the midterms. Does that make him more erratic? Or does that make him more predictable in terms of walking away, do you think?
Oh, I think there's no doubt that this is a case of the Americans are going to have to eventually walk away from this. I mean, if you look at this, 3 months ago, the Strait of Hormuz was open and petrol prices were reasonable, if I can say that in Britain. But they weren't extreme. They weren't as extreme as they are now. All he seems to have done in Iran, in my view, is antagonize the Iranians, made them dig in, made them more difficult next time, and it's caused mayhem in the region with shipping. And for supplies. I mean, you only had to look at headlines about airlines cancelling flights and the like because there isn't enough aviation gasoline. So, I don't know who did the plan for whatever it is, justifiable fury or what ridiculous code name the Americans come up with. But it ain't working very well, is it?
Well, it's interesting because right at the beginning, Donald Trump was taking full credit. It was all his idea. It was all him. That seems to have gone away. But the other ongoing problem seems to me that we've now, the world, Trump, whatever, this situation has taught Iran that it can switch us off at any time it wants to now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's no doubt that Iran has come out of this nominally stronger in many, many ways.
Yeah.
It still has its missiles, its missile launchers. It's still going to have its uranium, etc. And I'm not sure we've got anywhere out of this other than people have died. And a lot of hardware has been expended that could have been better used in Ukraine.
Yeah. Absolutely. Paul, lovely to see you. I'm so glad you're feeling better. I'll see you again.
Thank you so much, Petrie.
See you soon. Paul Beaver there, defence analyst and author. Right, quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, a very good evening to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie, and coming up at midnight it is Talk Back, and it is your chance to do exactly that. And I want to talk to you about pupils being told that it's impossible for black people to be racist to white peers. Do you think that's true? Do you believe that that is 100% true? And I do want to hear from you, whatever side of this debate you are on. Schools in Sheffield have adopted lesson plans which tell teenagers, actually it's from 7 years old, that the word racist cannot be used in context of black people's behaviour towards their white peers. This is because racism can only be exhibited by those who hold cultural power, such as white people over black people. I'm not sure that's true. I think racism is an issue everywhere, from every side. Do I think there is racism in this country towards black people? 100%. Do I think that there's also white privilege in this country? Yes, I do. And you may disagree with me, and that's fine. You can disagree with me. In fact, give me a call and tell me you disagree with me. I do believe that there is a certain degree of white privilege in this country. But I also do believe that we're all capable of hating somebody based on their race. If you hate people generally, which I don't, there's all sorts of prejudices, aren't there? And they're just as evil as each other, whether it's prejudice or racism. It's kind of the same thing, isn't it, if it's against a skin colour? Anyway, look, I want to hear from you, because this to me, the only thing that I don't agree with this is that very young children shouldn't be being taught this, because I think very young children don't really need it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm just going from my own experience as a mum of somebody who was 20 years ago. So, you know, maybe things have changed. Love to hear from you on this. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. And you can text me as well. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Now, though, the FIFA World Cup 2026 is almost here. In fact, I'm going to be talking about that in the next half an hour. And thanks to Adidas, the tournament's official match ball supplier, our friends at TalkSport are giving you the chance to be there. Adidas is sending you and a friend to Dallas to see England v Croatia live on June the 17th, with return flights, accommodation, spending money, tickets, and your very own Adidas official match ball try-onder. Be at England's first game in the FIFA World Cup at one of the world's best stadiums. Are you ready to get that winning feeling? Well, here's how to enter.
Get ready for that winning feeling. For your chance to win, head to talksportwin.com or text TALK to 83338. Texts and online entries cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 1st of June 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. See full terms and conditions at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. Full T's and C's at win.talk.tv.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a good evening to you. This is Talk and it is Petrie here. Just a reminder that coming up at the top of the hour we have the fabulous John Boothman. He'll be joining to go through the papers and also in the next half hour we're going to be chatting about the World Cup, about how FIFA has set the ticket prices, the price of going to America, all of those things, and all their hotels are now finding that they're not as booked up as they thought they were going to be. So we're going to be discussing all of that in just a moment. But first of all, Prime Minister Keir Starmer continues to say he's not about to resign, and in fact he's not even going to set out a timetable for that. It's nonsense. Meanwhile, the Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has backtracked from earlier comments that he made about Brexit because the region that he wants to win the by-election in, 66% overwhelmingly voted Leave. So he's slightly changed his tune because of that. Well, Wes Streeting, the former Health Secretary and potential PM contender, says that the UK's future lies one day back in the European Union. In fact, Andy Burnham had said he'd like to see us back in the European Union in his lifetime. Will that make any difference? Who knows? Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post, joins me now. Joins me now. Kevin, it started, although there's no official leadership contest yet.
No, you're right, Petrie. So under the Labour rules, an MP who wants to challenge the sitting leader needs 20% of the Parliamentary Labour Party MPs to back them, and that would be 81 by the current calculation, and as yet no one has certainly come forward with those numbers. Now, I think we're in a bit of a holding pattern now until we know the result of this by-election, which we believe will take place a month today on June the 18th.
But that is dragging this out, right? I mean, we know that they pulled the trigger too quickly, right? That's what Labour did. They pulled the trigger too quickly. Anybody knows that if say they coronated Wes Streeting tomorrow, right, whatever, or whoever, they know that there'd be a challenge from Burnham before the next election anyway. So we all know that. I was saying this last week. That's why nobody wants to step up right now, because they know they'd be biffed before the next election to get Andy Burnham, in position for that election. Yeah,
I mean, exactly. Wes Streeting would be on the back foot straight away.
From day one.
Accused. Yeah, I was speaking to one of his supporters today, actually, and they were saying, he knows fine well that he would have been accused of basically rushing it through to try and avoid Andy Burnham coming back. Now, we don't know right now, obviously, that Andy Burnham will definitely come back. That's why this by-election is so crucial and consequential either way, because if he wins, he comes back and will obviously challenge Keir Starmer immediately, and I think will win. And if he loses, then I still think there'll be a challenge, but it will be probably a much bigger field of candidates. You'll have Wes Streeting. I dare say you'll have either Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband. You may well have Yvette Cooper, John Healey. There'll be all sorts of people vying for it, because without Burnham, then it's a much more open race. I think if Burnham is in it, then Burnham wins, especially if he's just won a seat against Reform. But
like you said, that is not a given. Again, I've been saying this since this all started, is there any such thing as a safe seat anymore? I mean, we saw the Greens, and there's nothing to say that Burnham would have won in Gorton and Denton by-election, but everyone seems to assume that he would have done. But the Greens won it, and Reform were expecting to win it. Everybody was expecting Reform to win it, and they didn't. So in this multi-party world that we're in right now, isn't this an incredible risk by Labour to drag this whole thing out in the fingers crossed hope that in a month's time they'll have a contender in Burnham?
That's a huge gamble by Andy Burnham. Now, it's the weirdest by-election I can ever remember, because effectively you would be voting for Andy Burnham, voting Labour to get rid of a Labour Prime Minister, because there's no doubt at all, as I said earlier, Burnham would go for Starmer immediately if he was elected. In fact, he's put out a political broadcast this evening in which it's pretty explicit in this broadcast that he wants to be Prime Minister. So he's not even trying to hide it, that a win for him is basically the people of Makerfield are being asked to decide whether Andy Burnham should be Prime Minister.
Yes,
rather than
exactly.
It's pretty extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. And also they'd be voting in a local MP who would within weeks be Prime Minister and probably not keeping his eye on local issues. So is that what they're going to want?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, a lot of people, I think, quite like the idea of their local MP being Prime Minister, but also a lot of people would be like, well, yeah, we'd never see him. You know, it's not as if he'd be able to come back on a Friday, spend the weekend in the constituency, opening local fetes and having constituency surgeries. That just is impossible for a Prime Minister for all sorts of reasons. So yeah, it's, as you say, it's by no means a given. Labour won it at the last election with a relatively small majority, 5,500.
It's not a big enough. It's not a big enough.
Especially not in the current climate where Labour are obviously very unpopular indeed. So if they win it, it will purely be because of Andy Burnham's personal popularity. And if they can't win it, even with Andy Burnham, then I think a lot of the Labour MPs will be thinking, well, what on earth do we do to try and stop Reform from taking all of these seats in the north, the Red Wall, all those traditional Labour areas? Because if they win that one, then everything's up for grabs. Well,
and they could also win the Manchester mayoralty, of course, as well. That is another big risk that Labour's taking.
Yeah, so as I understand, I think Andy Burnham wouldn't need to stand down as mayor unless he won the seat. But you're right, if he does win the seat, then instantly there'll be a by-election in the mayoralty. And unless Labour can identify some sort of high-profile candidate with a strong local standing in the area,
Rayner, I think, maybe.
I'm probably Keir Starmer would be quite glad to
see the back of her.
Although by then it wouldn't matter because he wouldn't be Prime Minister
anymore. Exactly that. A Reform are in a strange position now, aren't they? Having wanted to see the demise of Keir Starmer, they now want him to survive. Oddly, because he's so unpopular. So they need him to survive.
Yeah, it is very weird, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility that if Andy Burnham loses, then that Keir Starmer can survive. I mean, I still think there's a very small chance of that, but he'd certainly have a better chance if he wanted to run in any leadership contest, because under Labour rules, he would automatically be on the ballot paper, should he wish to be so. He potentially would have a much better chance, certainly would have a much better chance of winning if he was up against, say, Wes Streeting or maybe Ed Miliband. If it went to the party membership, I think he'd probably still lose, but it's by no means certain. Whereas with Andy Burnham, I think I'm not even sure he would bother standing against Andy Burnham because it would be an absolute slam dunk. But if Andy Burnham loses that by-election, then that's him out of the equation, and perhaps Keir Starmer can survive.
I just don't. I mean, we saw a lot of mess, didn't we, with the Tories and swapping leaders constantly. But this is a mess of a completely different kind, isn't it? And it's really boring for the country. We've had so much of this, and people are losing faith and interest in this form of politics, because we absolutely know one thing for certain, Kevin. While these people are behaving like they're self-serving and Westminster bores, they're not running the country. That actually there's a lot going on behind each other's backs. The votes in government will be all in Parliament will be all political from now on. They're not serving us anymore.
No, I mean, to all intents and purposes, government has ground to a halt now until we know who's going to be the Prime Minister come the summer, really. And Labour's big selling point before the election is basically change. We won't be like the Tories. There won't be the chaos and the constant changing of prime ministers. It'll be the grown-ups will be back in charge effectively. It'll be a very calm political environment. And look at it, as you say, Petrie, I think this is actually worse.
I think this is worse. Yeah,
at least with the Tories, there is a mechanism, a very clear mechanism to get rid of a leader, and it's done pretty ruthlessly. Whereas now with this, it's a death by 1,000 cuts for Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
We had last week more than 90 Labour MPs publicly calling for him to go. We had ministerial resignations. We had cabinet resignation in Wes Streeting, and yet he's not going anywhere. He said it himself today again. He's not going to walk away. He's not going to set a timetable, because he knows that there's no point in him doing anything until we know the result of this by-election. And in the meantime, the government just isn't really functioning properly, and it's not as if we haven't got our troubles to seek either.
Yeah.
As a country, and the whole thing is deeply, deeply unsatisfactory.
We're also without a health minister now since Wes Streeting stepped down. Allegedly, Angela Rayner was offered that job. Turned it down.
Yeah. No one has denied it. I mean, so the chronology was quite interesting. I think it was last Thursday morning when it came out that she had been cleared by HMRC over her tax affairs, and later the same day was when Wes Streeting resigned. And I think there were people in Number 10 made approaches certainly to Angela Rayner about whether she'd be interested in being health secretary, and she said no, unsurprisingly, and she's got her eyes on a bigger job, I think. Perhaps if Andy Burnham doesn't enter the leadership race, I think Angela Rayner may well throw her hat into the ring. So they ended up plumping for James Murray. Who no one will have heard of him.
Never heard of him.
Pretty sure no normal person would have heard of James Murray. He's a pretty quiet, unremarkable minister. But again, no one expects him to be in post for all that long, because everyone expects Keir Starmer to go one way or another, and whoever succeeds him will obviously want to have their own cabinet. So
he'll want to reshuffle.
For very long.
He'll want to do a reshuffle anyway, won't he? I mean, he's pretty ruthless, Keir Starmer. He's going to get rid of anybody who stood against him in this.
Yeah, yes, although he's not politically terribly strong either, is the problem. And reshuffles are, they almost create as many problems as they solve, because everyone who gets sacked is instantly an enemy. People who don't get promoted, if they think they should have been, they're an enemy, and it's all a bit of a mess. And I just wonder whether he has the political strength. Certainly now, when he knows that at least a quarter of Labour MPs don't want him to be the PM anymore. So yeah, it's. I think a reshuffle is something that he'd probably try to avoid if at all possible. I
mean, it's almost admirable to have that thicker skin, isn't it, as Keir Starmer? I know that I couldn't do that. If you knew that all those people, if in your newsroom, if you knew that a third of them absolutely hated you and wanted you gone, you'd go, wouldn't you? I mean, you'd just be like, I can't live like that.
Oh, 100%. It's pretty odd, really.
Yeah.
But I guess it's one is his great strength. I guess is that he's very resilient. There's no doubt about that.
Is that resilience, or is that arrogance, or is that
pig-headedness,
tone
maybe?
Deaf? Yeah, being completely tone deaf is something there. I'm not sure it's resilience.
I mean, it's strange, isn't it? I mean, he's had almost 2 years of just constant negative publicity and criticism. Brought on by himself. He's brought it all on himself, so he can't complain about it. And yet, and it would have, I think, probably led to a lot of people just, as you say, jacking it in. Especially just in the last 3 weeks, we've had the terrible election results on May the 7th. We've had the convulsions within the Parliamentary Labour Party. We've had all these MPs telling him to go. We've had resignations. You name it. Andy Burnham making no secret of the fact he wants his job. Wes Streeting, likewise. He's had cabinet ministers literally telling him to his face that he needs to go, and yet he is still there. And as things stand at the moment, he's going to be there for the next few weeks at least. And I think most members of the public must just be looking on aghast, really, at the mess that this government.
We are. It's just like, oh, come on, you're being paid a lot of money to run the country, and you're not doing that. You're just, it's just so annoying. Kevin, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, though. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Kevin Schofield there, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Quick break, then back to talk about the World Cup.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie, and coming up at the top of the hour is John Boothman. He's going to be joining us from Scotland. But there's just over 3 weeks to go now before the World Cup. Certainly that way. That's where TalkSport are, just behind me. Lot of excitement about this, as you can imagine. It kicks off in North America, jointly hosted by the US, Canada and Mexico. As the England Stars get ready, the FA today confirmed it will do all it can to ensure our players' sleep quality by providing mattress toppers for the squad's base hotel in Kansas. Apparently, the mattresses are too hard, too firm. But talking of hotels, most host cities are seeing bookings lower than this time last year when there wasn't a tournament. In fact, according to the American Hotel and Lodging Association, 8 in 10 hotels found that the tournament has not translated into positive bookings so far. So why is that? What is going on? Well, fans may have been put off by the US administration's tough immigration laws. However, US President Trump has confirmed that football fans from 50 countries will be exempt from the $15,000 visa deposit requirement if they have valid match tickets. Ben Jacobs joins me now, sports broadcaster, heading to North America in a few days. Good to see you, Ben. Thank you for joining me. There's a lot of complaints about this year's tournament, not least at FIFA for the ticket pricing. Do you think that they've got it right? Is it fair, do you think?
Yeah, I think the challenge is the dynamic pricing leads to huge inflation. We'll wait and see whether that drops a little bit closer to the tournament, because as you say, the demand hasn't necessarily lived up to the expectations. I was at the Club World Cup a year ago, and it was exactly the same. Right at the beginning of the tournament, tickets were in excess of £400 or £500 for something relatively middle ground. And then once the tournament got underway, prices nosedive. So dynamic pricing can work both ways, but I can understand why fans, when they look at flights, hotels, the potential for that visa bonds, which, as you've just said, has been waived, and they add all of that up and they think this World Cup is just too expensive to attend. So my expectation is we'll still get a surge of traffic as England or Scotland fans decide it's worth going to a game, but that will come very last minute in the hope that some of these dynamic prices drop, particularly for the hotels and also the tickets. And if that's the case, stadiums might still be full, but fans are basically having to make last minute decisions, because at the moment, if you just put into your travel provider, whatever that may be, the total cost to even see one game, it's so huge for the average fan, and that's why at the moment quite a lot of people are still staying away.
I mean, it is extraordinary, because I heard as well about the train prices in New York to take people from, I think it's Central Station, to the stadium, which is not very far away. And they're charging an absolute fortune for that as well. So you've got to factor in all those things, that the stadia are not necessarily in America walking distance. So a lot of these things as well that fans have got to put together, and it seems crippling. It seems really expensive. The Scottish fans complaining about their first game being $1,000 a ticket.
Yeah, I mean, Scotland have obviously got Brazil in Miami as their kind of flagship game, and you can imagine there's huge demand from both sets of fan bases there. You're right to point out the public transportation. Some of those prices in various states have been challenged and been slashed a little bit. Others remain quite high. But at the heart of this, it's not just about fans and FIFA pricing or state by state or stadium by stadium pricing. It's also about local authorities and FIFA, and to an extent, really, the White House World Cup Task Force and each individual venue, because the expectation from host cities in America was that they were going to get funding to put on things like fan park
zones, yeah,
and to slash pricing because they would have been making money from the World Cup. But without that funding, a lot of the public authorities feel that they have to hike up the prices just to break even.
And you've also got an issue, haven't you? There'll be many cases with big football matches that certainly happen around the world, that a lot of fans turn up for the atmosphere. They don't have a ticket, but they'll go to a fan zone. They'll sit and just soak up the atmosphere if it's in a European city and enjoy being there. And maybe there's an off chance they might pick up a ticket as well. But that is absolutely not going to happen in America unless you can put down a $15,000 deposit for your visa just to go to America and be around the drama.
Yeah, I mean, the Trump administration have said that they've waived this very controversial visa bond fee. White House sources have told me...
If you've got a ticket.
Yeah, if you've got a ticket, absolutely. Yeah. Without one, it's a different story. I suppose some of that is to stop a mass influx. But naturally, as you point out, the whole point is some people will want to go over there without a ticket, particularly if their nation makes the final, and be part of that atmosphere and culture. My expectation, speaking to White House sources, is this number, though, of $15,000 or what, about £12,500 is the maximum. And the White House have always insisted that that might be a number to ward off certain people that, for whatever reason, they don't want there, whether rightly or wrongly. But actually, for the vast majority of people travelling without tickets, if there is to be a visa bomb fee, it will actually be lower than that reported number. But we'll have to wait and see because there's just no clarity at the moment. And what if you're a fan of Iran and with the politics you want to be at the first game, can you get in? What if you have to move from West Coast to East Coast? What if you're an England fan and you want to go to Kansas with them, each of the different locations, and they could even end up in one hypothetical in Mexico City? So the vast geography is completely the opposite of Qatar, where fans would pay a lot to get there, but once they were there, they could see all the games and they didn't have to move.
The other issue that is being mooted as a potential for why people are not rushing to go to America is the threat of having ICE agents at stadiums, and there's those immigration people, and there'll be a lot of fans who would be worried about being caught up with that if they have brown skin.
Yeah, and I think the ICE issue also became apparent during the Winter Olympics when ICE had a base in Milan and the Italian population didn't like the fact that they were even there in the country. And fans will be vigilant, and we have to wait and see how heavy-handed, if at all, any ICE presence is and how political this World Cup is. And it's funny because we've been speaking for 10 minutes and it's all about America, and this World Cup is in Canada and Mexico as well. And that's the challenge, I think, that the White House and Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, have, because Infantino has aligned so much with Trump that rightly as journalists and rightly as fans, we are shining a spotlight on ICE and the politics. Once the football starts, FIFA will hope it's a success. But this is going to be the most politicised ever World Cup, I would argue. And all it's going to take is one or two incidents. And then the challenge is that we're not speaking about the football.
Exactly that. And that is the shame, isn't it? Because this is the world's biggest tournament of sport. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be... We're not supposed to be having this conversation, right? We're supposed to be talking about how great the football will be and how this brings nations together. But when you've got some countries who won't even be allowed to let have fans at their football games because of blocks that Donald Trump has placed on those countries, it has changed it. Has FIFA stepped up to this, do you think, in the right way? Has Infantino done the right things with Donald Trump, apart from giving him a peace prize? Ridiculous. In order to make sure that this was more about the sport and less about the politics? Because it feels like FIFA, if you excuse the expression, has dropped the ball.
Well, I think Trump and Infantino are aligned, and Infantino is comfortable with that. Those of us looking at it from the outside in are putting more scrutiny on it. And you're right to note the FIFA Peace Prize, invented because Donald Trump didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, slightly bigger than the actual World Cup trophy. And the World Cup draw, again, was very Trumpian, and it was in Washington. And we have to remember that this is a World Cup with 3 countries. It's sort of fascinating to me because Qatar, of course, had loads of issues, but once the tournament started, it was a case of football causing most of the headlines.
It was,
Whereas in America, the danger is that once the tournament starts, things can kick off a bit more than in a place like Qatar. So you might get that juxtaposition of politics and sport running concurrently. People will say it's sports washing for Qatar and Saudi in a few years' time, because once the football starts, it will get swept under the carpet. But in America, it feels more volatile. And I'm not sure we'll actually be able to read the room until we're actually there on the ground.
As a journalist going there, I've only got about 30 seconds left, but are you concerned that you'll be talking more about the politics rather than the sport, or...?
Not concerned, because we have a duty to do so as journalists. We cover where the headlines are, and we have to accept that this will be a politicised World Cup. But the short answer is I hope I don't have to go down the political route, and I'm talking about England winning the trophy.
Really? OK. Well, if that happens, let's talk again, Ben, when you're out there. That would be amazing. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Ben Jacobs, their sports broadcaster, heading to North America in a few days for that tournament. Right, so coming up, we have the wonderful John Boothman joining us in the studio. He's going to be looking at the newspaper front pages for tomorrow. So make sure that you stay exactly where you are, because he's coming up in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And of course, in an hour's time, it is your chance to talk back. And there's this story that has been talked about all day, actually, but pupils are being taught that black people cannot be racist towards white people as part of a scheme to combat prejudice. Schools in Sheffield have adopted lesson plans which tell teenagers the word racist cannot be used in the context of black people's behaviour towards their white peers. This is because racism can only be exhibited by those who hold cultural power, such as white people over black people. So I'm not sure I agree with that, because I think everybody is capable of hatred, and racism is hatred, right? It's the hatred of somebody because of their skin colour. So I'd just be fascinated to know your experiences of this, of your experiences as a black person. Do you believe this is true? Do you believe that it is not possible for you to be racist? Or do you, is there racism amongst the black community? Is there racism from the black community to the brown community, from the white? I mean, we always talk about racism in the prism of it being a white person disease, that white people are racist. And I know white people are racist. Not all white people, obviously, but white people are racist. But surely that means that black people can be racist too. Or do you buy that white people in this country hold the cultural power? I'm not even sure I know what that means, cultural power. But do white people hold the power in this country? I suspect that they do. If you look at the across the spectrum of the people who run the top 100 companies, if you look at the top lawyers, judges, but then if this is a country that was predominantly white and Christian, so it's not a bad thing. But is it a thing that stops black people from getting on? That's the other issue, white privilege. Apparently somebody's already written and said, how dare you suggest there is white privilege? I think it's without question that there is white privilege. I do. I think that it is. I'm privileged in the fact that I'm not aware of racism. I don't have, people judging me for my skin colour. They judge me for being a woman, and that's, whatever. I can't do anything about that either. But I don't feel that I've ever been judged for being white. And I can't put myself in a black person's shoes. I wouldn't dream of it. But I suspect that there is more judgment and more people, if a black guy gets on a train, more people grabbing their bags, or, those not so subtle microaggressions that go on. I don't suppose as a white guy you've had that happen to you. And it's impossible for you to say, yeah, well, black people don't either, because you're not a black person. So I think that there's a lot of confusion on this, because we're not in each other's skin, literally, and we don't live each other's lives. We don't live each other's expectant. We don't know what it's like. I don't know what it's like to be black. I can only imagine what that must be like. And black people can only imagine what it must be like to be white. But does it really, at the depth of all of this, I don't know why it matters. I mean, genuinely, it's just a person is a person. If I don't like you, I don't like you, and if I like you, I like you. I don't care what flavour you are. But look, this is the one thing that I do think is that it is children as young as 7 being taught this is probably not the right way to go. To teach a 7-year-old white child to feel guilty for being born white, and to have that put upon them. I think as you get older, you can make your own mind up, as I've made my own mind up, about what I perceive to be the world that I live in, as opposed to the world that some of my black friends live in. And they tell me about the world that they live in. I don't get this from isolation. But I'm just fascinated really why some people are so angry about the idea that as white people that we might be better served in this country. I don't know why that would make you angry, but I'd love to hear from you if it does. Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Joining me now to discuss this and, of course, the newspapers for tomorrow is the wonderful John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. John, this is all kicked up again. Is it more divisive, do you think, lessons like this than they intend to be?
I think your point about 7-year-olds is a very well-made point. I mean, I find myself feeling increasingly uncomfortable when I hear stories like this, stories, for example, about, areas like this, we've had a great big debate about gender identity in Scotland, and, things were being discussed in nursery schools with very small children about sex and gender, which, frankly, I don't think has any place near kids of that kind of age. I think the whole subject is a subject that makes people a bit uncomfortable. I mean, to talk about, where does anti-Semitism fit into all this stuff? For example, where I imagine, by and large, if I'm talking about Jewish people and anti-Semitism, there are different kinds of people. Jewish people, there's Ashkenazi Jewish people, there's Sephardic Jewish people, but, where does that fit in the spectrum of black people and brown people and white people? I think it seems to me that people are coming at this with a very broad brush with their definitions, and it just makes me uncomfortable, the whole thing.
It makes me uncomfortable as well, because it is so divisive, I think, but also to recognise that I do recognise that I probably have had privilege being white in this country, and a lot of people say, well, you should have because it's a white Christian country, but I do recognise that. I do recognise that certainly in my industry, in the radio industry, there are not a lot of black people in this industry, and there's not a lot of black people even behind the scenes, and when you consider that I'm in London and it is a multi-ethnic, multicultural city, it is obvious to me. It's not a problem to me. People should get the job if they're good at the job. I don't care about that. But I can see that there's something going on. Maybe black kids don't feel that there's a place for them in media, or maybe they feel they haven't had the right connections to get into. I don't know what's going on, but it is apparent to me, and I've worked in a lot of different radio stations and TV stations in my career, and the same pattern has been there. So I definitely think there is some form of privilege there. To be in my industry that I recognise, but that makes people really angry to even suggest that might be a thing. And you look at the FTSE 100 and the people who are running those companies. Again, there's something happening there now. Whether it's because black young people don't believe they have a place in those industries, or they're not getting the breaks, or they're not getting. I don't know, but something is happening.
But there's a better awareness of these issues now than there's been before, without getting into, the sort of debate that you're talking about. Yeah. What we're talking about here is about practicalities. We're talking about, what kind of prescriptions could be brought forward by in employment situations, HR departments to remedy that. How do you recruit more people, from ethnic minority backgrounds? How do you recruit more people in something like broadcasting from working class backgrounds?
I agree.
There's a whole number of issues like that, which I think, to me anyway, are very, very different from talking about, where we started a few minutes ago, which is, can black people be racist? I mean, I think that's, a very interesting debate that can be had within sociological departments of universities, and maybe, when people are getting much older and they're discussing things in A-level classes and stuff like that, right? I don't think, as I say, it's appropriate for 7-year-olds. What I think you're talking about in employment is that, yeah, these are very, very well-known issues in employment. And I think what happens these days, and it's not perfect, but I think it might be better than it's been before, is that people can devise and come up with schemes to actually address these kind of issues and address these kind of problems, whether they be schemes that are specifically for underrepresented groups in society, training opportunities round about that kind of thing. And I think we are in a much more advanced position than we've been.
Yeah, I just think that racism being a form of hatred, everybody's capable of that. So I would say that it almost sociologically, black people would be as capable of racism, of hatred towards a group of people by their skin colour as anybody else.
Yeah, but racism need not necessarily just be about people's skin colour either. Yeah. We could be talking about,
anti-Semitism, for example.
Anti-Semitism. We could be talking about one country versus another country, which is, a pretty commonplace kind of thing. As I say, I think these kind of debates, I don't understand, right, where education authorities, for example, are coming from with this kind of stuff.
No. I think it's more divisive. I can only think that it can cause more division than it is setting out, probably with the best intentions, to make less. I don't know. John, let's take a quick break, but give me a call. This whole debate, is it just causing more division? Does it create more problems than it solves? 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Good evening to you. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you. And with me is John Boosman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. Let's kick off with this story. I know you're not a fan of this kind of, person who gets in the papers, but this is this story is a gift that keeps on giving. This is Katie Price, who was certainly on socials earlier on today saying that her husband, I'm not sure if they legally married or not, but her husband, Lee Andrews, has been kidnapped and whisked away. She last saw him with a hood over his head and shackled. It turns out that is not the case. He's being questioned by Interpol. But this guy seems to have completely taken over Katie Price's brain.
I think that might have happened a while ago, right? I'm bound to say. I don't wish to be too cruel about matters of this sort, but, you know, for me, I'm very generally of the opinion that I see too much of Katie Price, and I mean that. You know what I mean by that? Yeah, well, yeah. Sorry, this story does absolutely nothing for me. I wonder how much this story does for readers of the Sunday. Does this story actually sell papers? I remember back in the old days in Scotland, and you'll maybe appreciate this after what's happened at the weekend, that on a Friday or a Saturday, if you put a story about Rangers or Celtic on the front page, 100,000 extra copies would be sold. And if you put a story about politics, which is the area that I mostly spend my time on, then 50,000 fewer copies would be sold. So this was obviously important to the circulation of the paper. Look, not for me, genuinely not for me, whoever's wearing a bag over their head, no matter what the relationship would be with Katie Price. But I'm presuming that this stuff sells papers.
I mean, it must do, right? And yeah, the headline is, "I was fleeced by Katie's con man." And this is somebody called Clemmy. Gave £1,000 to this man to invest, and then he took the money and ghosted her, apparently. But currently he's being probed by Interpol. Like you, I mean, the only interesting thing is there's this sort of pseudo drama that gets kicked up. For me, that's just like, oh, for goodness sake! I mean, how much more dramatic can you be that your husband rang you in shackles and with a hood over his head? Turns out he's just being questioned by Interpol. Let's go to your sister paper, the Times. Burnham far ahead of Starmer in Labour vote. This by-election is going to be the most important by-election that has been seen in a long while since Gordon and Denton.
Yeah, well, I think maybe a bit more important than Gordon and Denton, to be quite honest. Yeah. I mean, you know, there's a number of things that I find fascinating by this. This by-election is going to take place in exactly 1 month's time, which is, you know, I mean, a really quick turnaround, turnaround since Josh Simon, the MP, resigned. Normally, you know, MPs resign for a particular reason. The reason in this case seems to be to get Andy Burnham elected. He's not quite been selected as the Labour candidate yet.
Not yet.
It's going to be the most bizarre by-election, a bit like the Scottish elections, where Labour canvassers will be going to the doors in Makerfield and they'll be saying, vote Labour to get rid of the Prime Minister.
I know.
With the Prime Minister himself saying today that he'll be supporting the Labour candidate, even if it's Andy Burnham who's standing with the express purpose of taking Starmer out after the election, because that's the way it's going. So that in itself is fascinating. It's a huge, huge risk for Labour in particular. You know, if you look at the local election results, Reform got more than 50% of the vote. Labour, I think, got 22%. So he's got to turn that round. There's the whole situation as well that if he wins, and then at some stage down the line, maybe in time for the Labour Party conference in the autumn, he may or may not become the leader. He may win it in a coronation. They're still going to have he can't be mayor of Manchester anymore.
No.
So they're still going to have, right, that whole thing to go through as well. It's a hugely unusual and fascinating situation, and still full of danger for Labour.
Yeah, and absolutely not a given. And I was saying earlier that Reform are in the bizarre position now of wanting Starmer to stay where he is. They don't want Burnham anywhere near the Labour government in case he can win some votes in the general election. So it's all very confusing. And Burnham, by no means this is a given that he's gonna win this. And then what happens?
Well, look, then what happens? I mean, if Labour don't win, presumably, well, Burnham doesn't get elected, is there then going to be a contest against Starmer with Streeting, Rayner and Miliband all waiting in the wings and us waiting in the wings to see what they're going to do? And the chaos just continues.
I know, that's the thing, isn't it? I was talking to Kevin Schofield a little earlier, who I know you know, and we were saying that all of this going on means that we're not being served, and this is actually worse than what the Tories did. It's this because this is just dragging this out because they pulled the trigger too quickly.
Well, or they pulled the trigger far too late. Some people might argue. Yeah. You know, we've been talking about this, Petrie, since, this time last year?
Yeah.
That Starmer would be in trouble. And he keeps being in trouble, but he's still there.
He's Teflon, that. He's not going anywhere. He's a limpet. Stuck to the side there. The other story that is interesting on the front page here, Lammy is to raise the criminal age of responsibility for children. Currently, we've got one of the lowest in the world at 10. So he's going to raise that to as high as 14 before a child can be accepted as having criminal responsibility.
I mean, it's 12, I think, now in Scotland, which is different from England. I read that article and I'm still kind of struggling a wee bit about why he would want to do this. Well, part of the rationale seems to be to keep young people out of really, I suppose, youth institutions, jails. I think the article said that there was a few hundred still in England. And the rest of it talks about, for example, making parents in some ways kind of responsible for the crimes of their children.
It's happening in America, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah, we've seen court cases in America about exactly this for very, very serious crimes. But, you know, I'm bound to say that this is not something that I think, you know, despite, you know, the reasons for it, will be something that will go down particularly well with the public.
No, and also you've got a situation where criminal gangs are using 9-year-olds to ferry drugs around and things like that. And maybe it will stop that from happening, but then you'll just get them using 13-year-olds to ferry drugs around, right? You know, because it's under the age of criminal responsibility. So I don't think this will go down well at all. I think that people do think that children of 10 and 11 know the difference between right and wrong, and we've certainly seen in the is it Jamie Bulger case where they were 10 and 11, I think. And they would have not had any criminal repercussions for that. So it's a difficult one.
Look, there's wider things as well. I mean, I'm looking at a story, and this, I suppose, plays into this idea about it going down well with the public. I'm looking at a story earlier on this evening on the BBC where teachers' unions are saying in Scotland that last year there were 35,000 acts of violence against teachers in schools.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's, you know, when you talk to the authorities about these kind of things, you know, these things aren't monitored correctly. In addition to that, teachers don't seem, or schools don't seem to have the powers really to do very much about it. They don't want to exclude pupils from schools, for example. And I know this is a wider question, but I just think there's an appetite among the public for, I suppose, less liberal attitudes on these kind of matters rather than more liberal attitudes, which I think is what David Lammy seems to be offering here.
Yeah, a lot of people will see this as watering it down, won't they? That this is not taking youth crime seriously enough. And also on the front there, a picture of Kate Moss at the Chelsea Flower Show.
I was expecting to see a picture of a gnome at the Chelsea Flower Show. That seems to have been the big talking point at the Chelsea Flower Show this year.
And David Beckham getting a rose.
Yeah, gnomes are back.
Gnomes are back.
Yeah, and David Beckham, as you say, was there as well. But various celebrities having creating gnomes that have been in display at the Chelsea Flower Show. I mean, I'm bound to say I've never been to the Chelsea Flower Show, and I would really like to go.
Oh, it's lovely. I have been. I tried to get a cheeky press pass this year, but I was too late. It's glorious. I mean, the couple of times that I've been there, it has done nothing but absolutely hammer down with rain, so it was pretty miserable. But it is a fabulous thing to go to. It is.
Yeah, you know, the one thing, I mean, it's not the same, but I can remember a number of years ago with my children going for the first time to the Royal Highland Show at Ingolston, just in Edinburgh, where you just have this amazing array of animals.
Yes,
right?
I went to a show once. I can't remember where it was, but yeah. Or lots of cows.
It's the most fantastic day out, right? Yeah. Absolutely fantastic day out, and I imagine that's what the Chelsea Flower Show would be.
Yeah, it is a fantastic day out. It's a little bit posh, but you know, there's a lot of gardeners in London who who volunteer to go and help with the watering and things like that of all the gardens that are there and all the plants that are there, and so they get a free pass. So we might have to do that one year, John. We'll have to volunteer to go and be waterers, and then you get to see it all. And it is a lovely day out. Let's just one story, little nib at the bottom there. Men buying babies. Campaigners warn that single men are buying babies from women in poverty. After figures showed that the majority in the UK use foreign surrogates to have children.
Yeah, I'd like to see more detail about that story. I saw that. I mean, I think I can recall a story sometime in the past year about, really about this. And I'd like to see more detail. It sounds a bit odd to me, but look, you know, I'd like to see more detail.
That's the frustrating thing about these nibs. But visitors to the blockbuster Bayeux Tapestry exhibition at the British Museum this year will pay 33 quid for a 40-minute slot. I remember seeing that in France when I was at schoolgirl.
Right, I've never seen it, but are they not going to lay it on the floor rather than put it on the wall or something? Did I not see earlier?
They better not. I mean,
I don't. I'm sure I read that in one of the reports earlier. Look, I don't think people mind paying that kind of money for, you know, something as good
incredible.
And unique
it is incredible.
As this.
Yeah,
I just think you know, we are very, very proud of the fact that all our museums and galleries you don't have to pay. You know, and that's only something that you notice when you go abroad yourself, right?
Yeah,
and
true.
you want to go and see, you know, something wherever you might go, and it costs you. I suppose you take it a wee bit ill out, right? Sometimes that you've got to pay. I just think it's absolutely fantastic that, you know, one foreign tourists can come and do that here, and we can do it ourselves, right? The part of the issue, though, is that we have never been able to attract a whole number of our own people who live in this country to actually go and, you know, really check out the delights of our museums and galleries.
Oh, I love a museum or a gallery. National Portrait Gallery is my favourite. But the trouble is that every time they do have an exhibition, it is like a Freud, who I love. Freud is my favourite portrait artist, and you have to pay to go and see that. So you can just wander around and see all the other stuff. When they have special exhibitions, those are the ones I want to go and see, and those are the ones you have to pay or be a member to go and see. But on the whole, it's really good.
It never ceases to amaze me. I mean, I live in Edinburgh, and we're just so lucky when we get to August, where the world descends in Edinburgh. You've got in every nook and cranny, you've got something going on.
Oh, it's amazing.
Some kind of drama, you know, some kind of musical. People on the acrobats, and, you know, people blowing fire in the streets and all that stuff.
It's wonderful, Edinburgh. If I'd known you years ago, I'd have been knocking on your door for a corner of your sofa.
But the sad thing is that there are so many people who live, well, in and not far from Edinburgh, who don't go anywhere near it.
Oh, that is a shame, isn't it? That is so sad, because it is spectacular. Do you go every year?
Oh yeah, I mean it's just well you can't. I mean it's
You can't
just round
miss
the
it.
corner.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic. It's unbelievable.
I may have been one of those annoying people dressed in a fairy costume trying to get you to come and see our show at some point in history.
Well, I won't be dressed in a fairy costume, but I might be around.
I was at one point. Let's take a quick break. John and I'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me is the wonderful John Boosman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. The Telegraph next. Starmer sabotages Burnham on Brexit. I thought that was Wes Streeting that did that.
Well, I'm finding this whole debate about Brexit is really, really interesting when you analyse what those three people are actually saying. Starmer today saying a debate on Brexit may happen some years down the line.
Yes, yeah, as in another referendum of some kind.
Burnham saying that now he's not pushing to rejoin the EU. And if you look at what Streeton said at the weekend, he said, we need a new special relationship with the EU, and one day we'll be back he hopes we'll be back in the European Union. So, yes, there are differences between the three of them, but I've not quite got my head to a place that, for example, some of the papers have, that they're all out there sabotaging each other.
Because Burnham has said in the past that he was very strong on rejoining the EU, but where his by-election, 66% of people voted to leave. So that's why they think he's slightly dumbing it down a bit now. We'll see. So it's good front page, actually. We've got another story here saying oil supplies depleting fast.
Yes, well, this is, warnings today that there's only a few weeks left of oil supplies because the situation in the Strait of Hormuz continues. We learned today that Donald Trump was ready, he said, to attack Iran again, he put it off after there was an intervention by other more friendly states in the Middle East. But the situation continues. The situation continues to cause problems in terms of the oil price, which is still north of $100 a barrel. That's going to have knock-on effects for everybody, and particularly for us, because we are so dependent on imports from elsewhere.
Absolutely. And apparently they're putting in plans now to talk about not rationing, but speed limits being reduced and things like that have happened in the past. What do you think about doctors working from home, John? Streeting's NHS home working revolution puts patients at risk. Patients risk having serious conditions missed by doctors working from home.
Can I say, let me explain this. I live in a country which has got a tenth of the population of the United Kingdom and a third of the land mass. One of the great advances that there's been in medicine in Scotland in the past few years in order to get people who live in far-flung places and nowhere near hospitals is the fact that they can get these kind of telemedicine type consultations.
Virtual consultation.
Right? You live in the Western Isles and the consultant lives in Glasgow. They could live in Nairobi if you want.
Yeah.
Right? And you can get them on the end of the line and they can do something which might help to diagnose what your issue is and have some kind of prescription or whatever that may alleviate your circumstances. You know, I can see the point that has been made in the Telegraph, right? And I think it's about people working from home. But, you know, there are huge, huge benefits to what we are talking about here. That you know, the fact that people can be, you know, get access to experts no matter where they live, right, that might actually help them with their health conditions.
Yeah, and there's this new, you know, the Patients Know Best system where you can log in and get your blood, you know, if you've had blood tests, or you can see all of your records and things like that. I think it's absolutely brilliant. The guy who invented that, I interviewed him a few weeks ago, and I was a little bit starstruck, to be honest, because I just think it's so clever. They're coming up with a virtual hospital idea as well, where, say, for example, I needed to speak to my neurologist, but my neurologist has got no appointments. They will find me a neurologist somewhere else in the country who doesn't have such a busy book. And I'll be able to talk to them. Now, it doesn't mean that I lose my neurologist. It just means that I get to have a chat with that person, and they then will pass all the information back through. And I think that that is a brilliant idea. So it's using people that are not as busy as, let's say, a London specialist might be in an area where they might not be as busy. And I love all that. I mean, I love the fact that I said last time I saw my neurologist, I said, you can do this by phone. Let's do it by phone next time. And she absolutely said no, and said, look, patients like you I need to see because you're all very, I'm fine. So, but I love it because it's so convenient.
Well, it's also, you know, given that, you know, expertise in hospitals in particular is being concentrated in fewer and fewer bigger hospitals, right? You know, this is a direction of travel for anybody who lives outside the city is really, really, really helpful. Yeah, right.
I think it's a really, really good idea. I mean, it may be that some patients are not as in line with their symptoms or whatever, and doctors might miss it if they're not in front of them. And I understand that we're not all as, you know, able to put across how we're feeling, and we're not all able to express ourselves in the same way. So there may be that some people might lose out because of that, and that is a tragedy. But then I would hope that if you're not sure about your communication skills, you could say, I don't want a doctor who's working from home, I need to go in and see somebody. So there needs to be two tiers to this, right?
Yeah, and people, you know, lots of people, particularly elderly people, might want that kind of security and stuff as well, if it can be done and if people are fit to travel and, you know, all of those things. I mean, these things, you know, there's a balance to be worked out, right, depending on individual patients. Yeah. But I just think, you know, it seemed to me a bit of a strange take in a story. Look, there's a lot of the papers today, depending on their particular political outlook, you know, are having a go, right, at each of the people who potentially may be the next Prime Minister. And this kind of story in the Telegraph just struck me as being exactly that.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I remember once having physio over the phone. That was interesting. But it worked. It was absolutely fine. Right, let's very quickly have a look at the Daily Star. First picture of Clarkson in hospital. I didn't know he was in hospital. Jezza's heart op. Jeremy Clarkson speaks for the first time about his health scare in the new Clarkson's Farm trailer, saying his heart wasn't getting any blood.
I think he had 2 stents fitted.
Oh, did he?
Doctors discovered that one of his arteries feeding his heart was completely blocked.
Oh, wow.
And he had a problem with the other one. But look, good enough for the Daily Star. You know, people are interested in Jeremy Clarkson, I think. And Although, again, these days, not wishing to diminish the seriousness of the situation, I think getting heart stents is a fairly commonplace operation these days.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm sorry if you've had a problem, but there are, thousands of people a day having problems, so I'm not really that bothered, to be honest with you. The Daily Mirror goes with I won't walk away. Starmer again. PM rejects call to set out departure timetable. And Lammy was there this morning, wasn't he, on the press round doing his bit, saying that we're getting on with the business of government, which I doubt.
Yeah, look, Starmer's now got that very peculiar kind of odd situation where he's having to support Andy Burnham. They're pictured beside him in the Mirror. We didn't actually get to some of that polling earlier. Seemed to suggest that it was a poll by YouGov of Labour Party members which said that 47% of them would rather see Burnham in charge. Starmer, I think, had 37%. Rayner had 8%, and Streeting only 4%.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
That was interesting. And the other bit of the poll was, again, about the by-election. Now, this was a poll of people all over the UK rather than people in the constituency, and it said 29% of them would rather see Labour winning it and 21% would rather see Reform winning it. And among northern voters, so not specifically in Makerfield itself, northern voters voted 37% for Burnham and 21% for Reform. So despite that horrific result for Labour in the council elections that we spoke about earlier, there seems to be maybe a bit of a movement in favour of Burnham. But look, we've got a month to go. We've got lots of issues to come out, Brexit one being one of them. Immigration will be another one that's obviously going to be big in the doorsteps. And then this situation about Starmer himself. Yeah,
and like I said, in Makerfield, they've got the opportunity to elect a Prime Minister.
Well, again, does that play well in the constituency?
Probably not. I would be furious about that.
We want to elect an MP. We've just cost the public a great deal of money by the last bloke resigning, when he didn't need to. And yet this is all about the leadership of the Labour Party. Then who's going to represent the good people of Wigan? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it literally couldn't be messier if it tried. Mind you, I think they'll get messier in the next month. Let's take a quick break, John, before we come back to the FT with a picture of Nigel Farage on the front page.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and the fabulous John Boothman, political correspondent of the Sunday Times in Scotland, with me. So Nigel Farage, John, makes it onto the front page of the Financial Times as his accounts are challenged that he paid for his £1.4 million house with his TV fee for appearing on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
There he is with his Bush Tucker hat, the front page of the Financial Times there. Yeah, look, there seems to be some trouble roundabout of this. He said that that's the case, but basically, when this house was paid for, the explanation was it came from this cash that came via his personal media company. But according to his personal media company's accounts, that's not what happened. Now, the other thing, of course, that's happening is that the Parliamentary Investigation Authority, Standards Authorities, are already looking at that $5 million gift that he received from the Thai cryptocurrency billionaire Christopher Harborn, and they're looking at why that wasn't declared. So, you know, Farage maybe doesn't have his troubles to seek either at the moment with this by-election coming up. I noticed, in fact, earlier that David Bull, who you will know, is no longer the chairman of Reform, and he's been replaced tonight by Lee Anderson, I read. So, you know, there's still some trouble at mill.
I didn't know that. I'll have to get in touch with him. I've got his number here.
Well, there's still some trouble at mill and Reform, but you know, it has
but
to
this
be
could
said.
be a real problem for Farage if they find. And look, if it's all above board, I don't care. He can do what he likes with his money. I literally couldn't care less. But he could find himself suspended and then lose his seat. And then have to refight for it. I mean, this could get worse for him.
It could get messy. I'm bound to say, right, you know, in a funny kind of way, if this was anybody else, it would cause them all sorts of trouble.
Yeah.
But somehow or other, you know, Farage seems to be a bit Teflon and all these things.
Well, because he will say this is a witch hunt. And it's got, you know, if this was anybody else, they wouldn't be doing it. I happen to be in your camp, where I think if this was anybody else, there would be much more heat on them, I think, than is on Nigel Farage. There's a lot of people think, oh, that's just Nige. You know, it's a bit like Donald Trump. Oh, that's just Trump. You know, that's just what he does.
Yeah, look, but, you know, may yet come back to haunt them. You know, we will look, but again, I return to this point about that, you know, this by-election will be so important, and it will mean so much if actually Reform win the by-election. So again, the really other thing that we need to see is who the candidate for Reform is going to be.
Yeah, maybe it's David Bull.
Well, maybe it's a plumber.
Maybe. Who knows? Who knows? We'll find out. Right, the Daily Mail, I might just rush through this. Slippery Burnham's 2 U-turns in one day. So they're going after Burnham now. Is it Air Miles Andy 2 as well? We're learning all about all the trips that he takes. The Guardian, Burnham Labour must change to regain trust. I see on the FT actually that he's promised to stick with the fiscal rules, which is actually quite an interesting point, isn't it? Because the markets, when they thought they were going to get a Burnham Prime Minister, the gilt yields went sky high because they're worried about him borrowing in order to spend. But he seems to be saying that he's not going to do that now.
Well, he's talked about, and how he pays for this is going to be interesting if he becomes Prime Minister, public control of transport, of water, for example, all of which would rack up some incredibly big bills. So, you know, these things are important.
But him saying that he's going to stick to the fiscal rules has calmed the markets out. The world is becoming, this is The Guardian, the world was becoming less resilient to outbreaks of infectious diseases, experts warned today. This is after the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Uganda scrambled to contain an outbreak of Ebola.
Yeah, they're saying that disease outbreaks are becoming more likely due to armed conflicts, due to the climate crisis, and they say that collective action around the world by governments are really being undermined by a whole number of factors. So, yeah, you get that, and they point to, obviously, the Ebola outbreak in Africa and the hantavirus.
Yeah.
So, just, the World Health Organization and a note of warning to all of us.
Yeah, well, we all move around so much, don't we? I suppose as well. This is depressing, isn't it? The iPaper, HS2 will cost more than NASA's Artemis moon mission.
Yeah, well, I mean, back tunnels and everything else, right? Look, the cost is. I'm back to this. Why is it when you look at countries and I understand bits of this, obviously, but you look at China, you look at other countries in Southeast Asia, they can just go and build railways, right? And bridges and roads, and yet it takes us an absolute eternity at astronomical cost to actually do anything.
But they're saying that a 145-mile railway line is likely to reach £100 billion. And that's against NASA's $79 billion projected costs for the Artemis mission.
I don't understand it, how we managed to get ourselves into this situation, but you're back to that situation that we talk about all the time where...
It's almost $1 billion a mile. It's just ridiculous. Honestly, we couldn't run a bath, could we? The Daily Express, Britons want to keep pension triple lock. Interesting, but there you go. I'm sure that the older people do anyway.
67% in the survey in the Daily Express want to keep it after the Intergenerational Foundation, a charity, said today that it's unaffordable and the country could save, I think, £18 billion a year. I think they said if the triple lock was got rid of.
God, that's extraordinary, isn't it? And the Metro, Grandad's brain reached via eye socket in the UK first. Keyhole surgery. Pioneering surgeries from the first op to fix a brain aneurysm using keyhole surgery through the eye socket.
Well, the Metro had a very similar story. I remembered it and looked it up earlier back in January about the same hospital in Leeds who were carrying out the same kind of surgery for a brain tumour.
Wow.
So...
it makes sense to me. Pop the eye out, go in that way.
I think they made a hole at the side of the eye.
Oh, did they not pop the eye out?
I think
I've always wanted to have. I sort of wanted if your eye was taken out, if you could see around the corner. That would be. Do you think that would be interesting?
No.
Okay. Just me then. I've always thought that would be quite fun. Anyway, let's have a look at a couple of your picks. I was talking about this actually before you came on, John, about the World Cup tickets. 25 days to go until the World Cup starts, and the pricing it seems astronomical. The Tartan Army have been complaining about it.
Yeah, look, this particular story in The Guardian I quite liked because it was talking about what are the most expensive tickets. Obviously, the final's the most expensive ticket, but it said amongst the early games, Colombia and Portugal and Miami, because there's lots of Colombians there and a lot of people might want to go and see Ronaldo playing for Portugal, trying to get tickets. But then it said that the second most popular game and the second highest price for resale tickets was Scotland and Brazil.
Yeah.
Because Florida's got a big Brazilian population, and whether Donald Trump likes it or not, and no matter how much it costs, I can tell you half of Scotland's going to be in Florida for the game anyway, whether they've got tickets or not either. So I can imagine that that's what the demand would be for tickets.
Well, but if they don't have a ticket, they've got to pay thousands of dollars in visa bond.
They'll go anyway. I mean, look, I mean, the whole World Cup situation between the American authorities, but more particularly because of FIFA and the ridiculous pricing and the ridiculous amount of money that FIFA are making out of this whole enterprise, is actually in danger of ruining the sport. I agree. The FIFA have literally dropped the ball on this tournament. They've just been so greedy about everything, and they're going to ruin it. They're going to. I also thought, right, because I'm terribly political, that Starmer will be hoping that England win the World Cup, and he's still the Prime Minister. It'll be a boost for Labour. Yeah, that's true. Actually, he'll definitely claim it. I wonder if he's going across there for any of it. He must be. He might be. Well, look, I mean, if they get anywhere near the final, right, of course you would. You know, I mean, there is the old tale, of course, that Harold Wilson won the election, and you know, after England won the World Cup in 1966 because of it. Yeah. Not sure that's going to happen this time, is it? Well, it'll be Scotland winning the cup, surely. That. Yes. Yes. Just another story. We only got a couple of minutes left, John, but I do want to go back to the garden gnomes that you mentioned. Garden gnomes should make a permanent. Do you have garden gnomes? No, we don't. I don't either. Yeah, we had a couple of wee meerkat things in the garden for a bit, but no, we don't have any garden gnomes. I was gifted from a great uncle who died. I was gifted a bronze Shih Tzu dog. That's in my garden. I've got a sort of jungle garden, so it's sort of in the jungle. But it'd be very handy if there was ever a burglar around, because it would raise that to somebody. It's very, very heavy. But I haven't got anything else in the garden like that. But why are they saying that? Why are they saying? Yeah, the whole garden gnomes thing. Well, I mean, apparently garden gnomes have been banned at the Chelsea Flower Show since 1927 or something. I didn't know that. Yeah, there it is. Yep. The tacky statues have been frowned upon, it says, since 1927. And Alan Titmarsh and Bill Bailey have been saying that the ban should be lifted, a permanent ban should be lifted, and that they would make a fine addition, and even suggesting that people should sneak garden gnomes into the Chelsea Flower Show. That would be great, just to sneak a couple of garden gnomes in there. Goes on to say that the king, in the way that we write these things, the king is said to have been keen for the gnome ban to be lifted. Oh, I can just imagine that there's all sorts of gnomes around. I don't think you can count soldiers, can you, standing to attention? But there's lots of gnomes in Buckingham Palace, I doubt, very much. Right, maybe in Highgrove or Dumfries up here, there'll be, you know, the odd wee gnome peeking round the corner. Yeah, right. They should model one on you, John. I think you'd make a marvellous garden gnome. I think a small fat Buddha, maybe. John Bateman, thank you very much indeed. Political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. Right, next it's over to you with Talkback. Stay away.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning to you. This is Talk Back with me, Petrie, and I want to talk to you about this story about schools in Sheffield that have adopted lesson plans which tell teenagers that the word racist cannot be used in the context, of black people's behaviour towards their white peers. The materials teach children that black prejudice against white people cannot be described as racism. And I think that is, I mean, if it's prejudice against white people, then it's racism, isn't it? I don't quite understand. If it's prejudice against people because of their skin colour, then that is racism. But they're saying that it can't be because white people hold cultural power in this country. So I think that lessons like this are not very helpful at all, especially when you start talking about giving these lessons to 7-year-old children, teaching them that you know, if they're called names by black pupils, then that's not racism, that's just prejudice. I don't know what that kind of means, and the definitions I think have been really mucked about with. But they're also taught that white privilege is an unquestionable fact. So I'd like to know from you, do you think that white privilege is a thing in this country? I certainly believe there are certain sectors of this country where there is white privilege, but I'm not sure that spreads across the entire country. And I'd just be interested to know whether you think that children should be being taught this, or whether it's divisive, whether it teaches children more differences or more othering than it actually is supposed to stop. That I don't, honestly, I mean, my boy's a man now, right? But when he was at school at the age of 7, it was a multicultural school, and there definitely wasn't an issue. I mean, there was never something talked about by teachers. It was never something talked about by pupils. It was never something talked about by my son or any of his multitude of rainbow friends that would be around at my house. It never seemed to be an issue. It never seemed to come up in conversation. It just wasn't a thing. Now, maybe, I mean, that is 20 years ago. Maybe things have changed in a way that I am not aware of, right? I mean, my son always had a multitude of friends from all different walks of life, as well as different colours, different. I mean, it wasn't unusual to see one of his male friends walk in wearing a dress because he fancied trying to be a girl that day, or what. It was never. I mean, it was all just, come round to my house, or come round, have chicken nuggets, and I don't know. Maybe it's become more of an issue, but is it becoming more of an issue because we're talking about it more, or is it becoming more of an issue because people are feeling that this country is incredibly racist? But I think to say that that prejudice against somebody because of their skin colour isn't racism is a very strange concept, because if you have prejudice towards anybody because of their skin colour, or because of where they came from, or even because of their religion, I know you can't say racism with religion, but it's still kind of, it's hatred, isn't it? It's hatred based on othering. And is it reasonable to be telling children at the age of 7 that they have white privilege? like I said, it's undeniable to me in certain aspects of this world. You can't have been around as long as I have in this business that I've been in and not noticed certain things. And I don't know whether that is necessarily white privilege, or whether that is that a lot of young black kids don't see themselves in media companies, or they don't know the pathway, or they're not taking the right courses, or they're not being given the right advice, or whatever it might be. But it is noticeable. So, I mean, maybe I've met a lot of black kids that want to be in media. Actually, I was going to say that maybe they just don't want to be part of this particular cesspool. I wouldn't blame them. But I just wonder if the pathways aren't there. It is a really difficult conversation to have this as a white woman, because I don't understand. I don't think anyone's ever been racist towards me. They've certainly been misogynistic, but that's a different conversation. But it's not. I've never experienced racism. I don't know if I've experienced white privilege. There's a possibility I have, but I don't know. I am not a black person or a brown person, so I can't possibly know what it must be like to be in that world, apart from talking to my friends of colour. Who, when you're having a conversation, there's one black guy that I know says, people grab their bags and away from me, or move in the pub. If he sits down, somebody will move their handbag from one side to the other side. Just little things like that he notices that I don't notice, because it doesn't happen when I sit down, right? So it is a complicated picture, racism in this country, but I do believe that every single human being on this planet is capable of racism, irregardless of their skin colour. And prejudice against somebody because of the colour of their skin is racist. It's wrong to say, look, just because you're black, the black kids in the playground are prejudiced against you does not make them racist. I think that is a confusing statement. So the question, can black people be racist? Again, as a white woman, it is difficult for me to answer that question, except with what I think is sociology, and say that if you're capable of prejudice against somebody for their skin colour, then yes, you are capable of racism. And I think that a lot of races don't like each other for whatever pathetic reason that could potentially be. I tend to judge people as to whether they're nice people or not. I don't really care about anything else. So I'd be interested what you think about this. And is there such a thing as white privilege? I do think that is. I think it's really complicated, but I don't know whether teaching 7-year-olds that they are privileged when they may come from a very poor background. We know now that white working class boys are the most, underperforming at schools. They're the most ignored. It's not the black kids that are suffering at schools. It is the white working class boys, and we're seeing that played out in all sorts of ways across society. So I think teaching children at the age of 7 that there is white privilege is potentially a dangerous thing to do. Or maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me. This is way too complicated for my little brain. So do give me a call. Love to speak to you about this. 0344 499 1000. Our calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Loads of messages coming through. So get your call on the board on this. And I do want to hear from you if you are, if you can advise me about what it's like to be a black person. Because I'm not going to pretend that I know any more than what my friends have told me about the microaggressions that they see and witness on a fairly daily basis. So I can't attest to that. So you're going to have to. But just give me a call. It'd be great to hear from you. Right, let's go to the calls. And John is in West Lothian. John, good morning to you.
A very good morning to you.
What do you make of this?
Well, I think it's to start these sort of conversations with children of that age or younger or, at primary school is just totally wrong.
Yeah, I do too.
I think children see children as children. They see their friends, they don't see colour and all the things that adults see. And I think you're putting it in their mind at a very early age. And I think that can lead to serious problems later on.
Yeah, and I think that children being children, they say horrible things to each other, and they may pick on one particular aspect, like if you've got glasses, specky, if you've got ginger hair, and if you've got a different skin colour. But just pointing that out, does that make them racist? No, but,
children will see, as you say, people with a different complexion. They'll see them with different heights, with different weights and all sorts of things. That's just the way that children are. But, I get invited down to a primary school to judge all sorts of competitions, whether it be poetry, singing, drama, whatever. And, the support these kids have got for each other is unbelievable.
Yeah.
They're not, if somebody wins, somebody's not doing very well, they support each other, and they've got nothing to do with race or colour or anything else. It's about their friends, I've been in a position as a senior manager where somebody said to me that I was being accused of racism or bias or whatever because I wanted to take somebody off a job. And he was from Zimbabwe, and he was a coloured young lad, but he wasn't doing the job. And it got to the stage where it could have got serious. He brought in a witness to listen to the reason for my decision, and his girlfriend came from Zimbabwe as well, and she just turned around and said, "You're being to her boyfriend, you're being ridiculous." All the reasons is because you're not up to the job.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's nothing to do with who you are or what you are or what you look like. It's the fact that you can do a job or you can't do a job. You've been given an opportunity and you've not done it. And, and I think that, for school children, it's a slightly different thing because they're not at that age where they can make those decisions. They only see people as people.
Yeah, I can't help but think that with a 7-year-old, you're pointing out, you're creating problems where there shouldn't really be any, and you're seeing, if you then tell black children that they can't be racist, and they'll start saying, maybe they'll start picking on somebody in their classroom and go, well, I'm not being racist. I think it gives license as well to children to cry racism where perhaps there wasn't any.
Well, most of the time there is none. But if we went to some of these other countries in Africa or Asia or something else, they could do exactly the same thing in reverse. It's about giving children respect to each other. It's got nothing to do with a colour or anything else. It's about respect for each other. I really feel that the media and governments, politicians are making it an issue that should not be there.
Yeah, a few weeks ago we were talking about can a 3-year-old or 4-year-old be racist because there was complaints about little children, and like I said, I think that just pointing out that somebody's got glasses or bucked teeth or whatever their characteristic is, that's what children will pick on. They're not very sophisticated, right? So they'll say, oh, you've got curly hair, why isn't your hair straight? Doesn't mean that they're being racist, but that is being taken as being racist because they're picking on a particular cultural identity, if you like.
Yeah, I've had more kids growing up. I'm pretty old now, so I grew up in probably a different era. But, kids would say, oh, look at Fatty over there or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was not meant to be nasty and horrible. It was just the way that they recognised something.
Yeah, they pick on a characteristic, you know. I mean, when my son was saying, can Abdul come home for tea, I said, which one's Abdul? And he went, he's the one in the blue coat.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's not very helpful. But that was the characteristic that he picked, and that was fine. That worked for me. I knew exactly what he meant by that. But it's a really interesting thing, isn't it? That with children being told, but also white kids being told that they are somehow privileged.
Yeah, I think that's totally wrong. I mean, traditionally, the UK is, a white country, but we've got so many nationalities living here these days that, if they fit into society, then they're British. End of story.
End of story. Yeah.
No messing about. They're British. They're here. They've got a right to be here. And if they behave with the same laws that everybody else behaves, who cares?
I am with you 100%. I am with you 100%. I literally don't care. I don't care. I care if people are being treated differently.
Yes. Because
of any characteristic. I care that the level of misogyny out in the world. I care about the level of anti-Semitism in the world. I care because I don't get it. I don't understand how you can hate people that you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, but I'm afraid, and I'll come back again, and I appreciate you're in the media business, but the media can sometimes push that.
Oh, I agree.
Angle.
Yeah, totally. 100%. The media loves nothing more than pitching people against each other.
Yeah, and I think, when you were having earlier conversations there, it's about what sells newspapers.
Yeah.
What makes people listen to certain stations or whatever. But it's about equality at the end of the day, and if we treat each other with respect, then this goes away. It actually goes away.
Yeah. I mean, it is so stupid that as human beings we haven't risen above the characteristics, if you like, that children point out.
Yeah.
We haven't risen above that. We haven't been able to find a way to say, well, a person is a person. If I like them, I like them. If I don't like them, I don't like them. As simple as that.
Yeah, my daughter had a friend that, was a little coloured lad, if I can use that expression.
Well, it's supposed to be, no, I mean, these days, I wasn't going to correct you because yeah, you're of a certain age, but no, it's black or brown.
And he was a super wee lad. And they got on really, really well. And did we care when he came into the house? Not at all. It was her friend. And then kids can have friends of whoever they want and grow up, and they will learn as they go along. But, whether you like somebody or not, it's got nothing to do with the colour of the skin.
No.
And it's also got nothing to do with the religion as well. It's about what you believe in and what standards you have. And if you can accept each other's beliefs and standards and whatever, you'll get on great. And I just wish politicians, senior politicians, would actually accept that and talk about that.
No, they love division as well. Because as a divided nation, we're easier to control. Because if we're fighting each other, we're not fighting them.
That's it, and it gets them. It's all about votes and about egos. It's about I'm going to look after me, and I'll say whatever it gets to get me in that position.
Absolutely,
that's the way I feel about it these days.
No, I completely agree with you, and I think it's really dishonest as well. I think a lot of it is, and we're all fed up of it. But I just think that lessons like this cause more problems than they are meant to solve, even if they're well-meaning, John.
Yeah, but it should not be in schools.
No.
It should not be in schools at any age. Maybe when you get to senior school, maybe there's a way of explaining it. It's about, talking about the British Empire. They're changing history. But it's all the bad things they teach. They don't teach any of the good things about it. And this is what causes these sort of problems.
Yeah, this is what causes the division. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. It puts thoughts into people's heads that they didn't think before, and especially if it's a 7-year-old, right? They're gonna go, I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't even seen that he was black or she was brown or whatever. It is fascinating to me how we have not been able to rise above this hatred of each other for we don't even know each other.
No, and
I reserve hatred for people I actually know.
Yes. Well, hatred is a very strong word.
Apart from Donald Trump.
We can dislike.
Yeah, no, I was saying earlier on, I said I don't I can't be bothered to hate people I don't like. Hate is too strong an emotion to waste on someone I don't like.
Exactly.
So I don't really hate anybody apart from,
Just switch off and forget about them.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. Can't be bothered to hate you because that's a waste of emotion. I just don't get it. John, lovely to talk to you as ever. Thank you very much indeed for that. I am going to take a quick break, but I'm going to come back and speak to Andrea in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a good morning to you. This is Talk Back, and that is what I'd like you to do, because this is all about your voices, your opinions. And the story we're talking about today is that pupils are being taught that black people cannot be racist towards white people as part of a scheme to combat prejudice. Schools in Sheffield have adopted these lessons and said that it is black prejudice against white people cannot be described as racism, which I find kind of weird, because that's what, if you're prejudiced towards somebody because of their skin colour, then that is racism, right? Isn't it? I'm sorry, I just don't see it as being possibly being anything else. But there's also part of this lesson is to teach young children, some as young as 7, that they have white privilege. While I believe that does exist in certain spheres of this country of ours, I wonder if teaching 7-year-olds that they are privileged to be white, when some of them will come from very poor backgrounds, some of them from households that are not privileged in any way because of their skin colour or their whiteness. I wonder if that is helpful. And in fact, is any of this helpful in terms of not creating more division? I think this, by design, will create more of what they're trying to stop. So I'd love to hear from you on this. Is this helpful? Is there this white privilege that we all have? Is there this world that many of us wouldn't recognise, but because we're not black or brown? I don't know. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I haven't lived a day in somebody's shoes who's black. I know from black friends, like I said earlier, a friend of mine will say that, women will either consciously or subconsciously move their handbag from one side of their feet to the other side of their feet if he sits down in a pub, which must be a horrible feeling, right? But, that level of, I don't know, prejudice, racism. So give me a call. I'd love to hear from you on this. 0344 499 1000. As I said, Andrea is in Essex. Good morning, Andrea.
Hello there.
Hello there. Good to speak to you. White privilege.
I think it did exist. I absolutely do. You know, if you went for a tenancy, you're more likely to get it if your name was Smith or Jones rather than Khan or Singh or an African or Chinese name. Auditioning for a TV advert, more likely to get it if you're white.
Certainly before they did that whole drive during COVID, wasn't it, really, that they started to bring in more black people onto telly?
Yeah. So you would be much more likely to get a job, a tenancy, a slot on the TV if you were white.
Yeah.
So I think that's the privilege. It's not the presence of something, it's the absence of something. It's the absence of, the prejudice, in my view, rather than, you're white, so therefore you're going to be rich. It's the absence of the prejudice rather than the it's that.
Yes, I understand exactly what you're saying. That you're not othered. No. I mean, but if you're black and trying to get into, like, I had this conversation the other night with a friend of mine who's a stage performer. And he was saying that he's white, and he was saying that it was of concern to him how many black people were now getting roles in theatres that were originally designed for white. They were written for a white person, right? And I said, but you've had the white privilege. And he absolutely went flippoid on me and said, I'm not privileged at all. That's really unfair. There's no such thing. And I said, yeah, but with all those character parts being written for white people, of course you've had the privilege because you fit that character. And is it a problem if that character is now black? Is it a problem if that character is now a woman? I mean, only if it's inherent in the piece does it matter, really. And then you look at things like Les Mis, the tour that they do, and the number. I mean, they were all white character parts, right? In the French Revolution, and the number of the most extraordinary, incredible, talented black voices that are now heard on these stage shows. I'm saying that's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's opened up a whole world to casting agents now to get the best person, not the whitest best person.
Well, the best person, that's exactly the crux of the matter, isn't it?
But they had to say it doesn't matter if the character is white. It doesn't need to be a white man. It can be a black guy if he can sing as well, if he can sing better, if he's. So they've opened it up in that way, which is great, I think.
I agree, but sometimes it's just about like the leading man or woman should be the person that they were. It's just about duplicating history rather than best person. I mean, for example, best person, I'm just not a big fan of that. I'm all about equality. But
does it matter when you watch Les Mis and you see all these it's a very male-dominated piece, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's about the revolution. A lot of men fought in the revolution. But it shouldn't matter that the guy singing, some of these incredible songs is a black guy. I don't think it takes anything away from the historical nature of the piece.
I agree. I totally agree. But, just moving completely sideways, my neighbour had to have 2 paramedics come out a couple of weeks ago. She'd knocked herself out.
Oh, gosh.
Falling on and smashing her head on the wall. 2 very young women came and they had to knock doors in my road to ask people to help to pick her up off the floor because they couldn't manage it. Because there were tiny little things. Now, that's not best person. I think we have to kind of forget DEI and go for I mean,
yeah, it's like the whole argument of having a woman as a firefighter.
I'm a big fan of, equality. I was good as any man in my jobs previously, but I wasn't the same, and that's why we need to just think again.
Yeah, there's not equivalence, is there? I mean, the difference between equivalence and equality. There was this whole.
I love that equivalence and equality.
Yeah,
exactly
there was a whole furore about women firefighters. And I can understand that. I have no issue with women being, but a woman like me, 5'2", I couldn't lift a man in that situation. I couldn't do a fireman's lift on a big guy and put him across my shoulder and save his life.
My son's a firefighter, and you should have seen when he passed out from his parade. You would not believe the weight, height, and strength of some of the women that passed out with him.
Really?
It was unbelievable. And they're probably great. They're probably fantastic women. But would I want them coming up a ladder to rescue me? No.
Well, I wouldn't. Listen, I'd be happy for anybody to come up to a ladder and rescue me. But I would. There's only the question of the strength, and if they've got the strength, then that's absolutely fine.
Absolutely. But no comment about that one. But I just think we have to go for best person for that particular. But going back to the.
But if we're going to do that, if we're going to go for best person, we have to first of all rid the world of prejudice, because there is prejudice.
It's brown. I'm sick of seeing black and brown people on the television who are utterly without talent. And I think I could go into.
But there's a lot of white people on television without talent.
Absolutely,
a lot.
But I think it's an insult to black and brown people, because I could go into my city centre tomorrow and find some amazing, witty, super bright, funny people on the street who are black and brown who would absolutely smash it. Absolutely smash it. And I think, oh my God, just come on the telly and do what you do. Live your best life.
But if you think before...
There are white people as well, I agree with you.
Oh, God, there's a heck of a lot... Well, there's a heck of a lot more of them. So there's a heck of a lot more of them that aren't talented.
I just think we do more black and brown people a disservice when we put talentless people, when there's millions of black and brown people who are so
extremely talented. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not getting the breaks through. I don't know how. I mean, I've always look. This business that I'm in has never been a meritocracy. Never. It's all about who you suck up to. It's all about.
I'm all about the meritocracy. I'm all about the
meritocracy. But in order for there to be a true meritocracy, like I say, we have to get rid of prejudice, and we have to get rid of misogyny, and all of those different things. And I can't see that disappearing, which is why DEI is at the moment a necessary evil, and it is an evil, but it is necessary because of the prejudices. Yeah,
it's awful.
It is. Look, I've always moaned about this business is not a meritocracy. It really is. I've been lucky that I've been employed for as long as I have. But
I'm sure. But you know what I've noticed as well, Petrie? This is a bit of a criticism of talk. I love talk, but all the women are quite beautiful. I mean, what does that tell us?
Oh, you make me blush.
All the women are a bit of eye candy, aren't they? For men of certain or very.
Are you including me in that?
I certainly am.
Good heavens!
Yeah, totally.
It's made me blush. I've never thought of myself as eye candy ever.
No, you're all very attractive to the eye, and that just. I mean, I love you all, but I just think.
What, you think we're only been hired for our
no,
eye candy?
No, I don't, because I think you all have talent. What I'm saying is you have talent and looks.
Oh gosh, I love you. I'm absolutely blown away by that. I honestly never in my life have I ever thought that I would be described as eye candy. But thank you.
No, you are. But I think if any of you look like the back end of a bus, you wouldn't be there. That's what I'm.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, maybe there's that privilege as well, isn't there?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I've always bemoaned pretty privilege because I've always felt that I didn't have it, but now I'm starting to question because of you. Maybe I have had.
Fab.
Maybe I have had it, but in my youth, perhaps. But yeah, no, I agree with that as well because men do get away with being ugly and on telly and on radio.
Yeah.
I'm not mentioning any names. I'm not going to mention any names. But yeah, they're all, And if you go through, if you look at the photographs go and pick a local radio station and click on the images of their presenters, they all look the same. They're all men of a certain age. They are all white men of a certain age, all over the country, and they don't have pretty privilege, that's for sure. Andrea, it's good to talk to you. Thank you for the compliment.
I've loved it. I've loved it. Thank you.
I will take that compliment with me. Thank you very much indeed, Andrea there. Right, I've got to take a very quick break, but I will come back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. It's Eye Candy here. No, don't worry, it won't go to my head. Some messages that I want to read out before I go back to the phones. Baz says, everyone can be racist, but only people that point fingers are racist. I go out shopping and love meeting and talking to all people. If their hair looks really nice, I mention that their hair is nice. I love complimenting people. It makes their day, and that makes me feel good. It's the same as driving. I slow down and let people in. I give way to pedestrians when it's safe. It makes them happy and I feel happy. It's all win-win. If someone is a little short of paying for their shopping, I will pay the difference. They're happy and I will have achieved my good deed for the day. If you live your life as I do, you will always feel happy and content. It's win-win. Love and be loved. I love that. I just wish there were more people like Baz around. Baz, and now I've got Kaz. Kaz says, yes, absolutely, black people can be racist. Everyone has potential for hatred. As someone once said to me, shut up, you chalky. Do you not think that's racist? Yeah, in my definition of it, it absolutely would be. Gary says, I completely disagree with the statement that black people can't be racist towards white people, and it definitely shouldn't be taught to children. Racism is prejudice, discrimination, or hostility towards somebody based on their race. It applies to all people regardless of skin colour. Judging somebody by their character and actions, not their skin colour, applies equally to everyone. Everyone of any race or colour is capable of being a racist. Well said, Gary. Completely agree with that. I think it's wrong to say that prejudice isn't the same thing. Right, let's get back to the phones. I've still got loads of messages to read out, so I will read those. I hope I get to them all. Carol is in Manchester. Morning, Carol. How are you?
Oh, good morning. I'm absolutely been hysterics. Candy, eh?
Yeah, I Candy. I haven't been called that before, but there you go.
I'll be honest, right? I've never heard you being called that, but absolutely.
Look, I'll take a compliment wherever it comes.
Hey, you take that.
Yeah, I'm having it.
You take it because it's just nice to laugh. It really is nice to laugh.
Are you laughing at me being called eye candy?
No, I'm laughing between the two of you.
That's fine. I'm joking.
I'll get back to the serious stuff with it. And racist. What is, can black people be racist? Of course they can. Oh my golly, of course they can. I grew up with it. I grew up with it all my life. I grew up with it. I'll explain. I grew up in my side. We had the black, the white, the brown. People were called yellow, from Asian. We were called everything. And then here we go. We had red hair, which I did, blondes, dumb blondes, there was a mixture of those decades,
Yeah, well, everybody was picked out for a certain characteristic, and they had the mick taken out of them for it. Mine was my name.
And that. And even with if we go to the closest area of what people are talking about, and it has been the last few decades, in the last 20 years, regarding about this racist type of thing. I think it's leaders of organisations, which are bad organisations, let's just put it that way, that use this kind of word. And I don't think that people really understand, right, what racist is. Racist is a kind of word that was used on both parties. Let's go to the whites and the blacks, because there were no browns or whatever. It was like the government to a certain degree, where you have Labour, Conservative, you have the, Liberals.
Do you think it's in their interest to sort of promote division in this way?
Yeah, and it was a division type of thing. But the majority of people where I was brought up on my life, from school, to be born, to be school, to develop, to go. I have people in my lifetime, and God bless one of my friends who died, today. God bless him.
Oh, I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, God bless him. And we were a mixture of all colours, all races, all religions. We never even thought about that. We never thought about, and I just think we've gone backwards. And
I think we've gone backwards.
I'd love to us, go backwards to where we were, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and learn all that togetherness. And somewhere along the line in the 20s, it's been unravelled. That's all I can say.
I tend to agree with you. I do tend to. I think it's got worse, and I don't understand why.
I mean, I've been trying to figure it out, and I just think because I don't do Facebook, I don't do computers, I don't do,
all that social media stuff.
I don't do it at all. I found it when it came through. To me, in my own head anyway, that I did not like it. I like this. What I'm doing now is speaking one-to-one on the phone, integrating with people and the neighbours and everything. Knocking on the door only for a minute, I might be looking like a nuisance or whatever. It's only what I was brought up with. And I've tried to, which, like I've said, we've got a nice neighbourhood. And now there's quite a lot of older people as well. But even the younger people, we've integrated. Again, we're integrating with each other. But I just think when where I live as well, when the WhatsApp goes on, Oh my God, I hate it. I never get involved unless I really have to calm things down, and it's just stupidity. You know, like it's attacking stupidity, stupid things. You know, like somebody's left, you know, like a McDonald's whose child's left this outside the door, or just stupidity talk.
And like you said, it just all creates a bad atmosphere, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It all creates bad stuff. I just wish people would just, like you said, go back to when it was all peace and love. But, you know, I'm a tree hugger. What am I going to say? Carol, good to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. I've got to take another break. I am so late to these breaks, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. Message here that I wanted to read out. This is from Marouche in Durham. As a teacher and educational researcher, I can see that the definition has been taken and altered from critical race theory. As a member of the minority, which is what we are, whilst living among our white people, yes, we can suffer discrimination, prejudice and ethnic penalties throughout living life, but so can other ethnic groups, including white people. So I'm afraid they've got this completely wrong. It's pathetic that the cultural power they refer to is called the dominant group, which, after all, this country is mainly white. All this rhetoric actually does in reality is alienate ethnic minority groups even more. Great show, Marouche in Durham. Thank you, Marouche. That is brilliant. I love that message. It's really, really good and explains a lot. Let's go back to your calls now. And David is in Alva in Scotland. Good morning, David.
Hi, good morning, Petrie. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad.
Good.
In fact, I was actually meant to be in surgery tomorrow.
Oh.
had vascular surgery in my leg.
Oh, no, you poor thing.
It's been cancelled. But I'm back next week, on Tuesday next week, to get the vascular surgery done because I broke my foot. I'm not going to go in.
Oh, no, you poor thing. Well, are you glad that it's been postponed, or are you annoyed?
Well, I don't think it's NHS because they've kind of pushed me through a bit. So I think it's a good thing the NHS in Scotland, for my particular case, with the rest of it, no. And I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting into.
Well, listen, good luck when you finally have the surgery. It's not the most pleasant surgery. A friend of mine had that done. But good luck with it. I hope it goes well. What do you think about this phone in this morning?
Well, would you rather have somebody that come across the channel being in Hereford or Poole, or would you rather have a Scotsman or an Englishman or Welshman or Northern Irishman in Hereford or Poole?
I wouldn't mind.
You're joking.
Why would I mind?
Right, okay.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Why would I mind if a Scotsman was in Hereford?
Well, think about it. What did the Scottish invent, for the starters?
I don't know.
It starts with an S, then it goes to an A, then an S. Then Poole is an S, a B, and an S. Northern Irish, Scottish, English, and everything started that. So why can't we stop the boats?
Right. But we're talking about racism.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying to you. There's nothing racist about this. But I think now that I'm 54 now, Petrie, right? And I've spoke to you before regarding this. My wife died in 2017, right, with secondary breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm left with two wee boys that are 12 and 14 now. I don't think they've got the same chance as I did at school. And they're both really, really intelligent. And so was I, to be honest.
So you think they're being disadvantaged at school for being white?
Yeah, if black people are racist, sorry, if you can't think, I think it is the other way about now. See, I really think if you're white privileged, so-called, I mean, I'm an electrician. I'm not white privileged. You know what I mean? I think it's all to do with your Westminster bubble and your woke DIY, DEI shite that is.
You think there's never been white privilege?
What, in this country?
Yeah.
Well, we shouldn't be white privileged. We are a nation of what, like 60% white people.
Yeah.
Right,
But that doesn't mean that we're better than, does it? Just because of our skin colour. There are plenty of untalented, horrible white people.
Well, I'll ask you a basic question. What did the Scottish people invent? And I'm going to start with the SAS and the Royal Bank of Scotland. The whole bank in Scotland, the whole bank of Scotland, banking system in the world.
Right.
What did anybody else invent? The French invented the hairdryer. English invented the computer system. Now there's about a million things on top of that the Scottish invented. And I'm not being like anything to do with a Scottish-English divide or anything like that.
But that would have been at a time where there weren't really black people in this country to be able to invent those things, and they would have perhaps been in slavery if they were. So that doesn't really stack up, because there are plenty of black people these days who are working in the field of cancer research, of electronics, of designing stuff. Your argument doesn't stand up, because you're talking about a time where black people weren't able to even partake in anything like that in order to invent anything.
No, that's exactly what I'm not saying.
Right.
We get fundamentals down, right? And I believe I'm the greatest believer in innovation, right? So anybody that's invented something, I mean, the one thing I look at is, see if you can look at the field, see if you can make it that wee bit rounder. That is what you do in life. But it seems now that people are taking, let's say, advantage of that.
Well, listen, I don't care who invents a cure for cancer or the latest. I don't care. I literally don't care what skin colour it is, just as long as they do it. And there's lots of people, brown and black, working in the field of medicine and engineering and technology now that would have been absolutely white privilege would have stopped them from doing that in years past. Anyway, good to speak to you, David. Thank you. Very, very quick call. Dan, I've only got about a minute with you. I'm so sorry.
Hello, Petrie, the eye candy. Anyway, I'm not disagreeing with what she said. I think that by going on about this stuff the last 20 or 30 years, we're creating a divide, Petrie. If you look back, you know Tina Turner. If you watch Tina Turner's some old gigs at Wembley Stadium, you had 90,000 white faces watching Tina Turner, because of how talented she was.
Yeah.
We brought all this on by going on about it too much, and by introducing these quotas and this and that, and it just divides everybody.
I think it does divide, and I think that what we do need is more education and more just togetherness, and actually that we did that was about that was around, and maybe we need to